Alright, guys, welcome back to the Battery Podcast.
Today we're going to be discussing real events and drug addiction based on actual personal events that we've encountered
Real recently.
very recently, as in this week. So,
first of all, say it again. The bittersweet part. Just
yeah.
quick,
So
just
yeah,
quick.
this week has been a very bittersweet week for myself, particularly personally level, because again, I am 1 week away from accomplishing my goal of paying off my student loans. If you've been listening, that's one of my biggest goals this year was to finish paying off my student loans so I can be free, be debt free, and to celebrate. And I've been working tirelessly. I've been working extremely hard. I've been it's required me to be very
disciplined
for the. First of all, for most people who know me, most people know I'm an incredibly disciplined person, especially when it comes to working out and training and eating right and all that stuff. However, I wasn't always disciplined with my money, and so now I'm starting to take a different turn for myself, and I decided, okay, first things first, I got to get rid of debt. And so I've been working incredibly hard for this. It's required me to become incredibly disciplined with money, a concept I just only recently started figuring out.
All right.
Now, that being said, we're going to go over a situation that happened to us this week. It involves a good friend of mine.
We'll call him Arnie.
We're gonna call him Arnie. That's not his real name, but we'll call him Arnie. So where do I start? I've known this guy.
Okay. Well, I definitely noticed something instantly when he took us to go watch Avengers. Like when he came pick us up. Yeah. Like he's an energetic dude.
Okay, so
super energetic dude. Like
to give you guys a little bit of context, I haven't seen him in almost 3 years. I haven't spoken to him in almost 3 years.
Probably the same.
He recently came back. He was living in LA. We're out here in Orange County, and he recently came back, and you hung out with him more. First, before I did.
When the Avengers came out, he took us. He said he had tickets for us, so he took us. We went to go watch the Avengers. But like as soon as he picked me up, he was just a lot more energetic than he usually is. Or like, I don't know. I could tell something was wrong or something was up.
And so this was about 2 weeks ago now, right? That you guys went to go watch Endgame. He stopped by when I got to see him shortly before I went to work for a couple minutes, and yeah, I did notice I noticed he was skinnier than usual.
Yep. Because I remember he used to take care of himself.
He was a relatively fit guy. I mean, and he could he was able to relatively match me in strength and athleticism. I mean, it was a different situation because he also had a couple injuries that he was working with. But if he didn't have those injuries, I'm pretty sure he would have been able to match me physically and athletically. Now, that being said, it was just a different thing to see him, and he didn't seem all there. I couldn't really have a conversation with him at that moment for multiple reasons. One, again, he just didn't seem like he was fully there, and two, I was rushing to go to work. Now, 2 weeks later, which is this week, he calls me and hits me up and says, "Hey, I'm kind of trying to get my shit together. I just broke up with my girlfriend." Now, he's been with his girlfriend. He was with her for I think a good 4 years almost, close to 4 years, out in LA. And I said, "Well, hey man, cruise over. Come over." I was at the gym when he called me, and he said, "You know what? Get here ASAP. Let's talk. Let's hang out. Let's talk. I'll call my work, and I'll tell them I'll be there later than usual. So we can have a decent conversation and sit down." And he said, "Yeah, sure." So he's on his way, and I'm thinking to myself while I'm at the gym and I'm on my way home, thinking, "Okay, cool." I'm thinking I'm gonna sit down with an old friend of mine, catch up, talk some shit, discuss the Avengers movie, and have a good time, and then probably give him some advice, and hopefully he's gonna be okay because he just recently broke up with his girlfriend.
Wait, did he tell you he broke up with her that day?
No, yeah, he told me that day, but apparently they had been broken up
Yeah.
with like a little over
It's
a
been
month,
like
now.
a month, okay.
About a month. Anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna catch up with an old friend of mine. I'm really happy. I was thoroughly happy to see him the day before, that week before, and I'd been wanting to hang out with him for such a long time, but now we know what's been going on. Well, anyway, so he calls me 30 minutes before I'm home, and he says, "Hey, is it cool if I just crash in my room for until you get here? I'm just really tired." And I said, "Yeah, sure." I thought, I didn't think too much of it, and so he lets himself in my room.
He used to live with us, by the way.
Yeah,
it's not that weird.
It's not that weird, exactly. So so I get home, and I open my door, and he's asleep. So I wake him up, and it took me a good minute to figure out what was going on, and well, he was high as a kite, and by high I mean he was cracked out of his mind. He told me he had gone on a 4-day bender on cocaine and alcohol, a very toxic it's a mixture. It's a very toxic mixture. He could have easily died. He had been up for 4 days, and he just hadn't slept, and so he was incredibly tired. He was incredibly tired until I woke him up, and then I noticed. I sat him up, and I bought food for us both. I stopped by and got some food for the two of us, and I said, "Hey, let's go outside." And he said, okay, cool. And he's shaking, he's looking around, he's just fidgeting constantly, and he just won't stop. And so that's when I knew, okay, something's up, something is not right here. And so I have him sit down in the patio outside, and I bring out the food, and he can't sit still. He literally cannot sit still. He's constantly moving, and I'm thinking to myself, what's been going on? So I talked to him. I said, "Hey, what's going on with you? Like, what happened?" And he said, "Well, first thing he tells me is he broke up with him, and his girlfriend broke up." And I thought, well, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. But what else is going on? Obviously, that's not the only thing. And that's when we get into it, and he tells me he is so cracked out. He doesn't even want to tell me exactly what he did. He just said, "I've just been on some stuff for the last couple of days, for the last 4 days in particular." I said, "Well, what kind of stuff?" He's just like, "I'd rather not say." I mean, when someone tells you they'd rather not say, it's because it's usually a serious case. And so we talk, and I tell him, "Hey man, dude, you need to," and this is looking back in retrospect, I thought to myself, looking back now, I could have handled it a little bit better, because I told him he needs to get his shit together, but I didn't realize just how high he was at that very moment. I did not realize it.
So did you lay it all down right there? Like,
I laid part of it down there. In that moment, I told him, "Look, dude, at some point you're gonna have to, figure your shit out, and and stop blaming others for your shortcomings, and stop victimizing yourself." And then, I told him, and I then proceeded to make as many calls as I possibly could to get him into a detox center, and he didn't exactly make things easy for him because he doesn't have health insurance, and I didn't realize that most, if not all, detox centers require some sort of health insurance. And I thought, well, this is it's an uphill battle. It was an uphill battle, and I spent almost 2 hours literally calling every detox center I possibly could, and we set up one appointment for the following day. It was a state-funded detox center nearby, about 15 minutes away from our place,
But it's usually packed, I'm guessing.
It's usually packed, and it was, in fact. And not only that, but they said that they can't guarantee anything, and some circumstances may require them to deny him help. And I'm thinking, damn it. All right, so I did what I could, and I called his dad. Now, him and his dad, his father, have not always had the best relationship. We'll say that it's an incredibly strained relationship. And his upbringing wasn't really the best either. And now looking back, I can start to... Anyway, sorry, we got a little distracted.
Whoa. I thought that was Arnie for a second.
Thought that was Arnie for a second. Well, the reason why we were kind of looking out, making, is because I've been trying to get a hold of him, but we'll get into that later on. So I call his father, and of course I get the response that I expected to get from him. Is like, I can't help him. He needs to figure things out for himself. Excuse me. And yeah. And so I called his sister. His sister was a bit more sympathetic, but she also couldn't, help him in any way at that very moment, because, she had her hands full with her kids and, her husband. And so, I mean, there was no other option. So I let him stay in my room. I let him stay in my bed.
We kind of hit him for the night.
Yeah, we hit him. Yeah. And
it was funny because Fat Boy was playing video games outside.
Yeah.
And my dad was like out here cooking and doing his shit. And he said, because he was coughing a lot, Arnie, and Fat Boy was just like turning up the volume on the TV just to make sure my dad didn't hear him.
Anyway, it was, so he stayed in my room, and then I was hoping the next day he would be a bit more coherent. And he wakes up the next day, and he's about the same that he was the day before. A little less fidgety, but he was mentally, he still was in the same spot. He was just mentally not fully there. And I mean, this is when I laid it down on him. That's when I sat him down. I cooked food for both of us as well. So first, before I get into it, I'm gonna say some things, and you're probably gonna be thinking to yourself, "Geez, you're kind of a dick." Okay, now let me make this perfectly clear. I care about this guy very much. I mean,
Well, okay, you're literally the only person that helped him.
On multiple occasions, not just in this occasion. There have been other occasions in previous time that I'm not going to get into, that where I have either helped him with utilizing my resources, or I have vouched for him. I've had his back when others didn't. There were people that weren't really big fans of his, and I backed him. I defended him. I defended him publicly against people who weren't really his biggest fans. And I said, "Hey, listen, he's still my friend, and I'm gonna have his back." I've shown this on multiple occasions. I've been nothing but incredibly loyal and supportive to him in everything he has done. So that being said, in retrospect, I probably could have handled the situation better, because I still didn't know if he was fully back yet or not, but I had a limited time to really sit down and talk with him. And I told him, listen, despite what you may think, despite how much of a victim you think you are based on your dad, and maybe your upbringing was pretty shitty. I agree. You probably did have a shitty upbringing, but at some point, you're gonna have to take ownership of your decisions. I told him that his best thinking got him to where he is right now, and I also told him to his face that he is incredibly arrogant, and he has a giant ego that will not allow him to be wrong. I've noticed this way back then. I just never called it out before because I was a bit more passive with him, and you could probably say I might have enabled him in a way. Maybe I might have enabled him. Maybe I didn't, say, hey, you maybe shouldn't be doing this, or maybe you shouldn't be doing that. There were times back in the day, and him and I have had a lot of misadventures together, but there were some situations where I probably should have stepped up and said, look, dude, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. Again, I'm a radically different person now than I was back then as well. I am not the same person I was.
Very true.
And I think this is this is another, I guess, a situation where you see two guys who have taken radically different paths. It was a perfect scenario, and I don't think he was prepared for me to speak to him the way that I did. Again, because he and I hadn't spoken together, haven't really hung out or spent time together in almost 3 years, And so, again, I've changed in the last 3 years, and he went a different path than myself. And it sucks. It really sucks, because I was hoping I could sit down and talk with him and, tell him how I've been doing, and tell him all the positive things that I've been doing with my life, all the self-enhancement I've been doing. I've been, my life is becoming, I'm loving my life every single day. It sucks that I had to, instead of having that conversation with him of saying, you know what, I've been doing this, this, and this, and maybe, you can join me, the conversation ended up having to be, you're fucking up. You are, you're making incredibly horrible decisions, and it sucks because you're not a stupid person. I know you're not. He's a smart kid. He's a smart guy.
Very adaptive.
Very adaptive, exactly. He's a smart guy, very adaptive, very,
he learned me a bunch of shit.
Yeah, same here. He got me to think, differently.
Completely differently.
Yeah, and he had an influence on me as well.
And he's unique.
Yes.
I don't know anybody.
I never, exactly. At that point, up until having met him, I never met someone like him before in my life. And so, he got me to think things differently, and I still utilize his thought processes to a certain degree. So it sucks for me to have to see him this way. I didn't know how to handle the situation. I just laid it out, and maybe it was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on him, because I just got done having a conversation with my dad, and my dad knows him relatively well too. I told him everything.
I don't think you did the wrong thing, to be honest. But yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I told my dad everything, and he said, "Look." I was thinking telling him this, he was gonna be like, yeah, well, he definitely needs to start, stepping up and stop fucking up. But instead, my dad actually took a much more empathetic approach to the situation, surprisingly empathetic. Considering if you guys don't know my dad, he's an incredibly stern individual. He's very stern, and he lays it out the way it is, and he doesn't take any shit. And this surprised the hell out of me. The way he told me this, he said, I mean, here's the thing. I'm honestly not surprised that he is the way he is, because he didn't have the best upbringing. He came from a divorced family, where his mother dropped him off at the doorstep of his dad's house, and his dad wasn't necessarily the most emotionally available person. Sure, he did provide food and shelter for him to a certain degree, but he wasn't really fully there as a father. I would say.
Yeah.
And we've met his father, and he's not a bad guy, in my opinion.
He probably just wasn't looking to have or to take care of a kid.
Exactly.
He never grew up, kind of.
He never, exactly. His dad wasn't exactly ecstatic to have to take care of a kid, but he did. He provided for him. He fed him. He clothed him during his formative years. And with us, he's been nothing but... We've been to his place quite a few times. He's been nothing but cordial to us. You know, he's taken us in, and he's invited us to parties at his place. He took us archery, right?
I didn't go.
You didn't go?
I've seen his bows. He has a sick bow collection.
Yeah. So I went to the archery range with him. So I mean, he was made out to be somewhat of a villain, and it's more complicated than that. My dad said, his dad just wasn't fully a father, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that my dad is a real father. Not only did he provide, but he was also there for us. He explained why things were right and wrong, and when I told him this, and I told him what's been going on with Arnie, he said, I'm not surprised, and I don't blame Arnie for the way he is. It is, in fact, bad, the bad, toxic upbringing. And yes, he did have a toxic upbringing, and it sucks. In that moment, when I was with him, I didn't take that into consideration. All I took was, you need to get your life together, and you need to make better decisions, and you need to stop, basically hanging out with the wrong crowd, because that's another thing he was doing, which we'll get into later.
And being a victim.
And yeah, constantly victimizing yourself. And I told him, even if you can blame someone else, even if you can, point the finger at someone else, it's not going to help you in the long run. It's not going to do anything good for you. I was incredibly blunt with him, and I don't know.
Wait, is that the first time or the second time?
This is the second time.
Okay.
I was incredibly blunt with him, and I told him, I let him know. I let him have it. Hey, dude. And
you also let him know you didn't hate him.
Yeah, I told him. I made sure he knows that. Well, even he knows I don't hate him.
He's disappointed.
I was very disappointed. Exactly. I
felt like a parent.
Yeah. For the first time, I was very disappointed, and first of all, like I said, all these things I'm saying about him, I said to his face. Okay, all of these things, and I hope and I pray that one day, he betters himself, and he can listen to this in retrospect and think, you know what, man, I did fuck up, And I myself, as I speak, looking back those last couple of days, maybe I could have handled it a little bit better. I honestly didn't know how else I could, so I was incredibly blunt with him. And here, I said another thing, and I said one more thing to him. And I still don't know how he took this, which is why I really want to speak to him again. I don't know how he took this, but I said to him, listen, I care about you a lot, and I want to help you in as much as I can, and I have helped you, and I've done a lot for you, and he knows it. But I also told him this. I said, there will be a time where I will not be there for you. And I told this to his face, and I said, listen, I'm saying this not because I don't care about you. It's actually, that could not be further from the truth. I'm saying this because I am a real friend, and a real friend will tell this to your face. Because fake people, someone that's not gonna, that doesn't really care about you, in your time of need, they won't tell you they won't be there. They just won't be there. They just won't bother telling you. They won't bother responding to you in any way, shape, or form. I was a real friend, and I told him up front that there will be a time where I will not be there for him if things don't change. I said that to him. I know it sounds harsh, but he needed to hear something like this. He needed a reality check. And, the thing is, again, you could, if you ever speak with him, if anybody ever gets to know him, and if he ever listens to this, he knows what I have done for him. I have done so much for this guy on many occasions and on many levels. I was there for him when nobody else was. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. Not only that, but I've backed him up when others didn't. I had his back. I've defended him when in certain situations where I probably shouldn't have, but I did. So if you think that what I said to him, all these things that I'm saying right now, seem harsh, Well, you need to understand, I've known this guy for an incredibly long time, and it hurts me to have said that. It's not that I don't care for him. It's the opposite. I care about him immensely, but I also had to be upfront with him, and I had to tell him the truth, because I didn't know how much longer how much time I had with this guy. And so I laid it out. I didn't know, and that's the thing, is I still don't know to this day what state of mind he is right now. He left 2 days ago. Yesterday was his birthday, and I called and I texted him, and I tried to, I tried to get a hold of him.
I did too.
Yeah, and no response. And here's the other thing too, and this is where I fully believe his father on this end, because when I spoke to his father, I told him, or I spoke to him, he said, I tried to contact him multiple occasions in the last few years, and he will never respond to me. His sister tried to get a hold of him, and he never responded. And I thought to myself, that makes perfect sense, because another thing was, I tried to get a hold of him
over the years,
over the last 3 years. I know for a fact in the last 3 years, I have texted him, I've called him, and I've messaged him through Instagram back when I did have Instagram, like, how he's doing, let's hang out. I tried to get a hold of him, and out of those 20 times, maybe even more, this is probably off the top of my head, maybe even more, but out of those 20 times that I got a hold of him, or that I reached out to him,
and he got a reply.
He replied maybe 3 times out of those 20 times. He replied, and out of those 3 replies, he never followed up on those replies. He never followed up. And so all of a sudden, now that he's in his time of need, he comes to me. He contacts me and says, hey, I'm kind of in a bad situation. So just giving you guys a little bit of context here. His dad tried getting a hold of him. He never responded. His sister tried getting a hold of him. He never responded. I myself tried to get a hold of him. He never responded. And then all of a sudden, now that he is in dire need of help, again, this isn't the first time. This is just the most recent and probably the most extreme instant where I've had to reach out and help him out. And I did. He stayed with me. He slept off all the drugs that he was doing. He detoxed here, and I fed him. I cooked for him, and I did everything, all this stuff for him while he was here. And so, I had to let him know, hey, at some point you're gonna be on your own. You're as of yesterday, he is 28 years old. You're 28 years old. You need to start deciding for yourself what kind of person you want to be. I made the decision a couple of years ago where I wanted to go. He needs to start doing that now, and needs to change. And I mean, maybe I might be wrong in the way that I did it, in how blunt I was with him.
I really don't think so. I mean, that's just being straight up. I don't think he took it the wrong way.
I don't think so either. He nodded. He listened to me. He said, he understood. He repeated what I said, and how he. I could tell he was trying to internalize it. It was just very difficult in that very moment, because he was still not fully coherent. And again, I didn't know how much time I had with this guy, so I had to tell him right then and there. That's the precise reason why I said it the way I did. And so I've been trying to get a hold of him in the last couple of days, and again, same as usual, radio silence. And so if he listens to this, just know, hey man, I'm rooting for you, but you need to step up. He has my support. My resources are going to be very limited in helping him out, so that means that he's going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting in getting help that he needs. And he also needs to understand that he needs to stop being arrogant, and he needs to stop thinking that he's right all the time. Because this is the type of person we're dealing with. This is the type of person who thinks he's right all the time, when in fact he is not. He is incredibly arrogant. And I say that, again, sincerely as a friend. If not me, the wrong person is going to get in front of him one day, and he's going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, man, you know, I'm gonna end it there. I really was hoping I could get into, you know, almost accomplish this, being this close to accomplishing my goal. I will be next week accomplishing my goal that I set out for myself last year, and hopefully next week we'll get into, you know, what that's like, depending on the situation and circumstances.
Write down all your feelings about that. I hopefully next week, because I messaged the
Oh yes,
the powerlift, or
So-
I'm trying to do a powerlifting meet next Saturday, May 18th at Metroflex Gym, Long Beach. But I mean, I'm trying to freaking get a ticket or a registration sheet, and I'm not sure if it's out right now.
you
Because I
can't-
messaged the guy and he told me what to do, like click the link and do everything. And when I did that, it just went straight to like no, like the website wasn't working at that moment, or I'm not sure if it's down.
Is Metroflex in Long Beach?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you tried maybe signing up directly there, like showing up there and
Or
like-
it's just a gym. I need to speak to the coordinator. And I
Okay.
got the guy's number and I got his email, so I just been emailing him.
Okay. So, we have a lot to look forward to. I just, again, this episode is specifically just, we wouldn't be real. This podcast would not be real. It wouldn't mean much if we didn't inject some elements of reality into this. That's why I wanted to get into this discussion with, and lay it out there.
It was a big moment. I mean, it was intense.
It was a very intense moment. I've never had to deal with something like this.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially not with him.
And the fact that nobody else helped him.
Nobody.
That's what's messed up. Like
But this is not new.
Yeah.
Like the fact that nobody was there for him but me. This is not new. This is kind of a familiar situation the explicit situation of him being on incredibly cracked out on cocaine and alcohol and being on a 4-day bender doing that was new to me. I've seen him you know, fucked up before and stuff, but I'd never seen it to this point, and now I know he has a problem. He's a drug addict. He's a bona fide drug addict. It sucks. And
I've seen people recover.
yeah, no, this it's not impossible. I know he has the capacity to do it. I hope he does, but he needs to step up and also, you know, get back to me. You know, just because I said those things, first of all, I don't take it back. It's, you know, I meant every word I said. I think my issue was, I think the thing that I'm maybe having regrets is saying it to him in his state of mind. But the only reason I said it is because I didn't know how much longer I had with him, and so I said it then and there, just to get the point across. And maybe, hopefully, he took some of that in and internalized it. You know, and I hope he gets back to me so we can actually sit down as friends, and I can sit down with my old friend and talk some shit, like I said, and discuss the Avengers movie, like we wanted to talk about some of these experiences that I've been having, these positive, amazing experiences that I've been having, and some of the things that he's gone through, aside from, you know, his drug laced you know, situations, and, you know, catch up and go from there. So
Spoiler alert to the Avengers. It's a giant Fortnite ad. Later.